When I sat at the table that night, everything already felt wrong. The tension had been building all day, the kind you can taste in the air, but no one admits is there. Dinner was supposed to be peaceful. My mom had made her usual pot roast, the one she always bragged about when company came, and my younger sister Lily was laughing too loudly at something Dad said. I'd just come home from work, still in my office clothes, my hair messy from the rain. I sat quietly, not wanting to start anything, but silence was never safe in our house. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video. Dad looked at me like he always did, a mix of boredom and disgust. Did you even wash your hands before sitting down? He asked. I nodded. Yes, Dad. He stabbed a fork into his food. You should have changed too. You smell like stress. Lily giggled behind her glass. Maybe it's that cheap perfume she wears. Mom didn't stop her. She never did. She just poured Lily more wine and said, Your sister works hard. Not everyone gets to sit in air conditioning all day. But even her defense sounded like a dig. I kept my eyes down, cutting the roast in silence. My hands were shaking slightly. I was too tired for this. Too tired for another night of insults disguised as dinner conversation. So, Dad said suddenly, his tone shifting to something sharp. Your boss still hasn't given you that promotion you've been whining about? I looked up. I'm not whining, He interrupted, his voice rising. You've been there 3 years, still a nobody. I don't know how someone can work that long and achieve nothing. Lily laughed again, that cruel, high-pitched sound that always found its way under my skin. Maybe she's just not good at anything, Dad. Something inside me twisted. I put down my fork slowly. That's not true, I said quietly. Dad leaned forward. What did you say? I took a deep breath. I said that's not true. I do my job well. I pay rent. I help around here. The words barely left my mouth before he shoved his chair back and stood up. His hand came down hard on the table, rattling the dishes. Don't talk back to me at my table. I flinched. I wasn't. And then he shoved me. Hard. The world tilted for a second. My chair slipped out from under me and I hit the floor, my elbow cracking against the tile, pain shooting up my arm. You deserve the ground, he sneered, his voice low and full of venom. That's where people like you belong. The room went quiet, except for the ringing in my ears. Lily stared at me, frozen for a moment, then covered her mouth to hide a laugh. Dad, she whispered, but there was no concern in her voice, only entertainment. Mom didn't move, didn't stand up, didn't ask if I was okay. She just sighed and muttered, You always push him, you know that? You can't. Keep picking fights. I felt something inside me break, not from the pain, but from the way they all looked at me, like I was the problem, like falling to the ground was proof I belonged there. I pushed myself up slowly, my hand slipping against the cool tile. My face was hot, not from tears, but from shame. I looked at each of them, waiting, hoping one of them would at least say sorry. But no one did. Dad sat back down like nothing happened, cutting another piece of roast. Now, where were we? Oh, right. Lily, how's your new project at work? My sister smiled proudly. It's going great. My boss said I have leadership potential. Mom beamed. Of course you do, sweetheart. You've always been the shining one. I stood there, invisible, bruised, and humiliated, while they laughed and clinked glasses over my silence. That was the night something shifted permanently. I walked out before dinner was even over, my hand still trembling from where I hit the floor. Outside, the cold air hit me like a slap, but it felt better than being inside that house. I didn't know it yet, but that was the last time I would ever sit at that table as their daughter, because one day soon, they'd all remember this moment, and that time, they'd be the ones on the ground. I didn't go back inside that night. I walked for hours through the quiet neighborhood, my shoes soaked from puddles, my elbow throbbing where it had slammed into the tile. I could still hear his voice echoing in my head. You deserve the ground. The words replayed over and over until they stopped sounding like an insult and started feeling like a curse. By the time I got home, it was past midnight. I didn't open the door. I couldn't. I sat on the porch steps, shivering until the porch light flicked on. Mom stood in the doorway in her robe, holding a cup of tea like this was just another normal night. "Are you done with your tantrum?" she asked. I blinked up at her. "He shoved me, Mom, in front of everyone." She rolled her eyes. "Oh, please, you always exaggerate. He barely touched you." "Barely?" My voice cracked. "He threw me to the floor." Her tone turned cold. "And what did you do to provoke it? You never stop arguing, Claire. You know how your father gets. You could have avoided it." That line. "You know how your father gets." It was the family motto, the excuse that erased every sin he committed. I stood up slowly, the steps creaking under my weight. "You're unbelievable," I whispered. She gave me that look, the same one she'd given me since I was a child, that mix of disappointment and superiority that always said, "You'll never be good enough." "If you don't like how we do things in this house," she said, "you can leave." So I did. I walked inside, grabbed my jacket from the chair, and went straight to my room. Lily's laughter drifted from down the hall, muffled behind her door. I opened my closet, stuffed a few clothes into a duffel bag, and zipped it up. My hands were shaking the whole time. When I walked back out, Dad was sitting in the living room watching TV, a beer in hand. He didn't even look at me. "Where do you think you're going?" he asked casually, eyes still on the screen. "Out." He chuckled. "You'll be back? You always come crawling back." I stopped at the doorway. "Not this time." He turned his head then, finally looking at me, that smirk still sitting on his face. "Good luck out there, princess. Let's see how long you last when no one's feeding you." Mom crossed her arms behind him. "Don't slam the door on your way out." I didn't answer. I just left. The air outside was freezing, but I didn't care. I walked to the bus stop at the corner and sat there until sunrise, my duffel bag on my lap, tears drying on my cheeks. For a week, I slept on a friend's couch, the same friend my parents always called a bad influence because she came from a broken home. Though now, I finally realized who really lived in one. I found a small apartment after that. One room, cracked window, cheap mattress on the floor, but at least it was mine. For the first time, there were no footsteps outside my door, no yelling through walls, no sneers at dinner, just silence. I picked up extra shifts at the grocery store to pay rent. I'd leave early in the morning and come home late at night, tired but free. Some nights I'd lie awake staring at the ceiling, wondering how many times I'd mistaken endurance for love. And then, one night, something happened. I got a call from Lily. Her voice was shaking. "Claire, it's Dad. He's in the hospital." My chest tightened. "What happened?" She sniffled. "Heart attack. He's stable, but Mom's losing it. She said she doesn't want to deal with it alone." For a moment, I said nothing. The world felt quiet. Then she whispered, "Please, can you come?" I hung up without answering. I sat there for a long time, staring at my hands, remembering that night, the table, the sneer, the cold tile under my palms. "You deserve the ground." A part of me wanted to go, to be the good daughter again. But another part, the one that had finally started healing, told me not to. Still, a week later, I found myself standing outside the hospital anyway. Not because they deserved it, but because I needed to see it. To see if they could still look at me the same way after everything. Mom was in the waiting room, mascara streaked down her face, her phone clutched in her hand. When she saw me, her expression flickered between shock and relief. "You came," she breathed. I crossed my arms. "You said he didn't need me." Her lip trembled. "Please, Claire, don't start." I looked through the window at the man in the hospital bed, tubes in his nose, machines beeping softly. He looked smaller somehow, weaker, the kind of fragile he used. To call pathetic. Something in me shifted. Not pity, clarity. They had always believed they were untouchable, that their cruelty had no cost. But now, watching him like that, I realized something. The ground he said I deserved was the same one waiting for him too, and when it was time for consequences, not even his pride could save him. I didn't say a word. I just turned to leave. Mom called after me, her voice breaking. "Don't you walk away from us again. We're family." I stopped, my hand on the doorframe. "Family doesn't shove you to the floor," I said quietly. She didn't answer. She just stood there, her face pale for once, realizing I wasn't the one beneath her anymore. It had been 6 months since that night at the hospital. 6 months since I last heard my father's voice or my mother's lectures about respecting my elders. In those months, I rebuilt my life piece by piece. I worked, saved, and moved into a small but sunlit apartment with white walls and quiet neighbors. I'd wake up to the sound of birds instead of shouting. I learned how to cook meals for one without flinching at the sound of plates clinking, and for the first time in my life, I didn't eat dinner in fear. Then one morning, I got a knock at the door. When I opened it, Mom was standing there, alone. Her once perfect hair was unbrushed, her lipstick uneven. She looked older, drained, smaller somehow. "Claire," she said softly, "can we talk?" I hesitated but stepped aside. She walked in, her eyes darting around the apartment like she couldn't believe I was capable of building something without her. "This is nice," she murmured. "You've done well for yourself." "I did it without you," I replied, sitting down. Her eyes flickered. "I know. That's actually why I'm here." She took a deep breath. "Your father. He's worse. The doctor says he might not make it through another episode. He's been asking for you." I looked at her for a long time, trying to read whether it was sincerity or manipulation behind her trembling tone. "And what exactly do you want from me?" She pressed her palms together. "Come see him, just once. He keeps saying your name." A bitter laugh escaped my lips before I could stop it. The same mouth that said I belonged on the ground? The same man who shoved me across a table and laughed when I hit the floor? Her face fell. "He's still your father." "No," I said calmly. "He's just a man who gave me a last name." She flinched at that. "You're cruel." I leaned back in my chair. "Cruel?" I repeated. "Cruel is making your daughter feel worthless for existing. Cruel is teaching her that silence is the only way to survive dinner." Her lip quivered. "He's dying, Claire. Don't you care?" I met her eyes and said softly, "Not anymore." The silence that followed stretched until she finally stood. Her hands shook as she reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. We're losing the house. The medical bills." I cut her off. "Mom, if you came here for money, you can leave." Her voice broke. "You have no idea what we've been through." "Oh, I do," I said coldly. "It's called consequences." For a second, I thought she might slap me like she used to, but instead, she looked around one last time. At the little apartment, the small potted plant by the window, the peace she'd never given me, and her shoulders slumped. "I hope one day you forgive us," she whispered. I nodded slightly. I already did. I just didn't forget. She left quietly. The door closed behind her, and the sound of her fading footsteps felt like the last page of a chapter I'd been trapped in all my life. 2 weeks later, I heard through Lily that Dad had passed. No note, no apology, nothing. Just silence. When the funeral came, I didn't go. But I sent something instead. A single white card with 4 words written in black ink. "You deserve the ground." It was the first time I'd ever used his words without fear. That day, I went for a walk by the lake near my apartment. The air was cold, clean, and calm. The kind of peace he never let me have. I sat on a bench, watching the water ripple, and for the first time I felt weightless. Because in the end, my revenge wasn't fire or fury. It was freedom. I built a life without them, and that was the one thing they never believed I could do. And somewhere, deep down, I hoped he finally realized what it felt like to be on the ground, while I learned how to stand tall. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video.